Good afternoon. I'm Jim Eskin. As founder of Eskin Fundraising Training, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 103rd Nonprofit Empowerment Webinar. And it's great to have a very good friend that I'll introduce in a moment. And I want to say, too, we'll introduce him in a moment, that change is inevitable. And we're going to be, first of all, today's topic is applicable to those in the nonprofit sector and those in the profit sector. And that is, what is your dream job? I think it's something like 1/3 of our lives are spent at work, or what was that, kind of like 90,000 hours. And not all that's overtime, friends. So we're going to talk about, can you attain your dream job? Well, I got the best person I know to help us go through a thinking process. In our audience, we have nonprofit professionals and volunteers from all different types of organizations. We have CEOs, we have executive directors, we have directors of developments, we have board chairs, we have donors, volunteers, and we appreciate what you all do every day to touch, improve, and save more lives. And we want to help you do it better. As I said, this is our 103rd, and it's going to be the final one for the foreseeable future, which we'll do in the traditional format. And I'd like to bring on Jenny Moore, who is a communications professor at Texas A&M University, San Antonio, and also is the founding director of Jaguar Student Media. And thanks to Jenny's leadership, Eskin Fundraising Training is going to be able to go hybrid. And that means we are partnering with the Texas A&M University San Antonio TV studio, and we'll have an audience of nonprofit leaders, and that will be hooked up to Zoom. And so we want to get you the best of both worlds. You'll be watching the interaction between a live audience, but you can join us from just like you've been doing now, from any of your smart devices. Jenny, I took too long. I think you've been in A&M 14 years. You've had a distinguished career in the media. Could you take a few minutes and tell us about your award-winning communications program?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thanks for the invitation. And I just want to say hi to your guests and tell them a little bit about this next venture that we're doing together. We have communication students who are studying public relations and journalism at A&M San Antonio. I have been here for 14 years, so I've seen lots of generations of students come through. One of the things that we're really good at A&M San Antonio is career development, making sure that the students have a lot of hands-on opportunities. We have a beautiful TV studio, which you will be joining, and producing your show alongside students. So what's really unique about this opportunity for us is that the students are going to have the opportunity to work alongside with you to produce the show. So they're getting lots of experience.
Now, you've told them they're going to have to give me a lot of help. I'm going to need a lot of help.
They're so ready. They've got the lav mics and they've got all the technology, and they're going to be playing around along with you. They're going to have a good time and learn. And you're helping them to get jobs when they graduate because they're going to have all that production experience.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, and we're going to premiere this new format on Wednesday, July 19th. We're going to keep to the same time format, 4 to 5 p.m. And we have 3 summer pilot programs scheduled, July 19th, August 2nd, and August 16th. I'm excited about the subject matter experts. And Jenny, thank you again for opening the door to this huge next step. I'm very excited, and I think it's going to be of great value to our nonprofit partners. So thank you for your leadership. And
we are so excited to support you and all of your audiences. Thank you for all that you do in the community.
Thank you. And you'll be seeing all you want of me and more. Okay, so thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on. What is your dream job? And I tell you what, let's start from square one. Mm-hmm. Don, how do you define a dream job?
And before I do that, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to be here. I was thinking back to just when you started talking, the way our relationship has changed, right? Before I started our nonprofit, Helping Military in Transition, which you helped us in the fundraising piece, I was the vice chair and then the board chair for the American Red Cross. And that's how I started connecting. One of my board members, actually through a BNI group, she connected me to you. And I just showed you a picture a little bit ago it's almost 5 years ago when we were together in a restaurant on San Pedro. And we don't look a day older, do we?
That's
right. And so it's been an exciting 5 years to see how my role has changed and how your advice has always been consistent of how to continue to work. And now it's a pleasure to give back in my new role. I just left my nonprofit a couple months ago, so I'm focusing back on achieve new heights. And but what I'm doing is the same. So to answer your question, what is a dream job? Yeah. When I think back of a dream job for me, it was always the one that just gave me energy through the day. I couldn't, there was a news article not too long ago talking about the Sunday scaries. And there's a major part of the population that on Sunday afternoon, the anxiety and the stress level starts going up. And by the time they're going to bed, they're kind of almost shaking about, I don't want to go tomorrow. Either I don't like the role, I don't like the people I'm with, I don't like the leader, I don't like the company. It's probably a lot of different reasons, but they're not excited about it. Where a dream job would be one where come Sunday night, you're already starting to think about, wow, I get to go to work tomorrow. I get to go work on those challenges. I get to go work with those people. I'm energized by it. I almost can't wait. Now, I don't leave Sunday night and go to work because I still love the family, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. But you're going with that attitude, and you get up on Monday morning and you pop out of bed and you start heading down because you're excited. You get to work. I don't know if you remember, it just popped in my head. There was a movie Big with
Tom Hanks. I love that movie. I loved on the big piano was my favorite scene.
I love that scene. Yeah, but there's the time where he gets off the elevator and he's walking through the office and he's high-fiving. Remember that? That's almost the way that you feel when you've got that dream job. You can't wait to get there. You can't wait to take on tasks. The time just flies by through the day. You're looking forward to challenges. You're looking forward to tasks from the boss to be able to not just prove your capability, but solve problems, to think things in different ways. So you really get excited about it. Now, I think you can find that same thing kind of outside, right? You may have a hobby that you just love, right? You just love being with the family and raising the kids. We go up to Kansas City and play with our grandkids, and we take them out on the Frisbee golf and just being with them and doing things with them. You just love it. You're kind of like floating on a cloud. So I think that's the kind of thing. It's all about the energy that is inside you when you're doing that job or doing that task, whatever it is, that gives you the excitement. I think that's what dream is all about.
You think that energy is in all of us? It's just a matter of identifying it and nurturing it and bringing it out?
I 100% agree with that.
Okay. You told us what is a dream job. What isn't a dream job?
I think it's just the opposite. Just what we were just talking about, right? It's that job that you're afraid on Sunday night to go. You get up Monday morning and you're like, oh man, you're just like laying there. You don't want to get out of bed. You get to work and you almost want to go, as soon as you get to work, you want to go have breakfast because you don't want to tackle the tasks of the day, right? Your boss starts coming down the hallway and he's like, Gleason! And you're like, where can I hide? Where can I hide? I don't want to do this. But then you're watching the clock tick, tick, tick. All day long. And all of a sudden you're thinking, it's gotta be quitting time by now. And you look up and it's coffee break in the morning. And you're like, really? I got another 6 hours? And it just sucks the life out of you. It sucks the energy out of you. So when you leave at the end of the day and you can't wait, it's like, you ever heard that quote says, don't let the door hit your butt on the way out the door?
Yeah.
That's about the way it is, man. They're trying to sneak out that door before it even closes at quitting time.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you go home, you're just exhausted. Yeah. And all of a sudden you get home and all you want to do is sit in your chair, grab a beer or whatever, and watch TV. You don't want to engage. You don't want to think. And And to me, that's just no way to live. It's why would you want 90? I just did a math, 93,600 hours. You were right. I couldn't believe that. 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, 45 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Why spend 93,000 hours in that kind of environment? So that's why I'm in what I'm in, is to try to help people find that job that energizes them. Now, I get 100%. I like one of your questions. The income piece, how important is it? Because we all go through a phase where income is the most important thing. I just need to put bread on the table. Yeah. I need to pay the bills. I need to, the apartment, the utilities, the car, the gas. I've got to do that. But if we can use that as a stepping stone to work ourselves to the dream job. So when you get there, and hopefully not at 65, right? Hopefully 35, 30.
Let's pick up on that in a moment, because when people think of rewards, what first comes to mind is compensation and benefits. Do you think to get your dream job, do you have to make trade-offs between compensation and benefits and what you really want to do?
Part of it depends on what you're motivated by. Some people are motivated by money. That's all they care about is money, money, money. And if that case, you could find your dream job in that high salary, because that's what it's all about. It's not about the work, it's about the pay.
So it really doesn't depend. It doesn't depend on what you're doing. That's secondary. It's just getting 6 or 7 figures or whatever the outrageous income is.
It's who you are. Now, at some point, though, I would have to think, and I think I've seen some studies on this, when you start getting so much money that you're paying all your bills, you're putting money away, you funded your retirement, that extra dollar doesn't improve your quality of life anymore, then there is a piece where you start thinking about, what's the impact of what I'm doing? Is this really helping America? Is this helping the people? Is this, think about so many people who've made all this money and then they start giving it all away. Bill Gates right now, right? His whole focus is helping around the world with medical situations, health situations, and it's just giving back all this money. I was reading 60 Minutes. There's a billionaire who went to Zaragoza Park in very South Africa, not the country of South Africa, just north of there. But he totally changed by investing in getting the animals back, protecting the park, by employing people. He's changed the life of everybody in that area. He's giving back, and he is just absolutely loving it. So here's a guy who money was the whole thing, and now it's the impact. So I think at some point it changes back over. Well,
I have a little insight, and I honestly believe, I've spent my career in fundraising, and, typically there is the donor, the solicitor, and the beneficiary. And particularly with the large gifts, I've seen it close up. I truly believe the donor gets the most satisfaction out of the gift transaction. I know that sounds like I'm making that up, but I've been with a lot of people. Maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $25,000. On a few occasions, I've seen $1 million or more, but the donor is the one that gets the most satisfaction.
Yeah. And there's a great book, if I can add. It's the book Essentialism, ESS, Essentialism. And the author talks about focusing in on what he really does well. So a lot of times, especially in the military, I was 27 years military, right? We get told to be a jack of all trades, master of none, be able to jump around to different positions. You may take on a job that you have no training for. You're still expected to perform.
Now, don't tell me that's general, by the way.
I don't know. But this guy says, when you get into a company and you can really focus in on what you really want to do, that really utilizes your strengths, your skills, your passions, you can actually make more money because you become the expert. You're so good at it because you love doing what you're doing that it makes a huge difference. He had some people telling me, he says, you're not going to make near as much money by focusing in, and he proved it wrong. So there's several studies that say that you can make more money by being your dream job.
There's a book written, of course, by a team at Harvard, and I actually think it was the University of Vancouver. It was called Happy Money. and they studied. You know, everyone always says, if I only could win the lottery, if I only could have a bigger salary, but they actually scientifically studied, and they started picking on lottery winners. And it was very surprising that the outcome of lottery winners wasn't the way you would expect to be. And they defined, and sharing with others was one of the greatest joys. You know, when you think it's stuff, materialism. Okay, so maybe you want a Maserati car. Okay, you will love it on the first day, the second day less, the third day less, diminishing returns. You know, by the second month, it's just your wheels. And maybe you want this beautiful house. I can tell you, the first week you're in it, you will love it. But there's that law of diminishing returns when you define happiness based on stuff. Do our expectations of a dream job change over time?
I think they 100% do, and I think they should. And here's why.
Amplify. Yeah, please amplify.
Yeah, here's why. I think we only know what we know when we come through high school and come through college. I'll take me for an example. 5th grade. It was April 20th of 1970, the first Earth Day in America. And I got lit up to work environmental. My dad had taken us fishing. We would get to rivers and streams, and you could see the yellow scum on the water from the pollution. You could smell the pungent smell. You could see the dead fish. And first I was wondering, why are we fishing here with the dead fish, right? But I started to think about the pollution we made. And I said, I want to do something different. My dad loves to fish. He loves the environment. I love the environment. How do I protect it? So I was really good at math and science. I got my bachelor's in civil environmental engineering. I got in the Air Force. I got to do some really neat things, you know, with groundwater, fighting pollution in groundwater, managing hazardous waste, doing all kinds of neat stuff, won some environmental awards. And once I started to lead teams and help them be better than they thought they could, I got lit up. I started to put the environmental behind me and started the leadership piece. It was pouring into people, helping them be better. And as a commander, I had people come in who we were ready to kick out of the service, out of the military. And when I got to catch their attention and help them change their behavior and stay in the service, I know some people who I almost put out as a staff sergeant who made Chief Master Sergeant, E9. That is so satisfying. Yeah. And now that I've moved out of that leadership into career coaching, right? Career transition coaching, helping them find the position that they really want and get that job so they stay in it and succeed longer. That to me is really satisfying. I was telling somebody else yesterday, sometimes when I get done with a coaching opportunity like that, I literally float down the stairs to dinner. I tell my wife, I was like, thank you for letting me do this. It is so much fun. So I think just like that, I think as we get greater experiences, our dream will change. Doesn't mean it has to change. Yeah. Some people start the environmental track and that's all they want to be, or a facility maintenance track, or a welder, or a plumber, whatever it is, they love it. So that's great. But maybe it does change just a little bit. So I think we got to be open to it and try different things. Just like when we raise kids, right? We get them a little soccer, we get them some basketball, we get them some baseball. Which one resonates with you, right? Which one do you want to focus in on, if any? So I think that's good.
Usually it's around college time that people start thinking, what do they want to do with their lives? Is it possible for some people to identify, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be an accountant, something pretty early on, as early as college, and stick with it, and it becomes their dream job?
I think anything's possible. I think there are people out there who found it in high school and college, and they stayed with it. They're now 78. They're still loving it, right? The small town doctor who just loves. But the question is, does he love being the doctor, or does he love interacting and communicating with the population and helping them live that better life? What is it that excites him? So as I work with people trying to help them figure that out, is I don't just say, what type of job do you want? What type of job lights you up, right? What job gives you energy? But tell me what's behind that. Small example. I was working with a guy who was in Alabama, black. I said, why did you leave? Why did you join the service? He said, because there was nothing for me but crime and drugs and alcohol and prison in my future. And I did not want that. I said, so we were talking. I said, so what was the thing that really excited you that you did? He goes, oh, it was easy. I was helped be the sponsor for the U.S. Basketball Olympic Dream Team to come to D.C. And they got to meet with the kids from the schools in D.C. And these are poverty-stricken kids, poverty neighborhoods, right? And he said when their eyes lit up, we're talking David Robinson, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, all of those guys. Yeah. Almost every one of them came from a tough situation. And he said the kids could see they did it, I can do it. So I think that plays a lot into when you all of a sudden start to realize what it is that I want to do. But we won't know that in the beginning. So
all right. Hey, let's go back to this trade-off. Money and joy. How do you balance the two? I need the money, I need the benefits, but I want joy in my, 1/3 of my life that's spent at work. Trade-off.
Yeah, I think if you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
I
think you nailed it.
Right?
Yep, 5 in the pyramid. I think you've got to take care of that basic level need before you can work forward to finally get to that ultimate where you're altruistic and helping everybody, right? You can't start there. So we've all got to start. And that's why I thought your question was so good, right? Because some people are all about money for their whole life. Some people are only about money because I got to pay the bills. I don't have furniture. I don't have a computer. I don't have a car. I don't have the food I want, right? And we've got way too many people in that situation in America. So how do we help people get the basic needs so they can go to the next level, start enjoying life? So I think there's different things, different ways to look at it in terms of money, but that trade-off is going to be almost by individual. I think the Maslow hierarchy gives you a good starting place. And then you got to think about what motivates the person and go from there. So it's going to be almost independent.
I'm going to go off script.
Sure.
But do you find that people who come from very comfortable backgrounds have a different route to their dream job as opposed, you were talking about the kids in D.C., they were meeting Michael Jordan, everyone. Do you think there's, is there a different route to a dream job if you start from a place of comfort?
There's a great circle that I just saw, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I'm going to try. Hard times create good people. Good people create bad times. Bad times create bad people. Bad people create bad times. It kind of goes around the circle, right? You think about going through the Depression. That was a hard time. Yeah. That really focused people in. I mean, they became really good people, but they really became high on values, high on production, very focused. But then you go into the 50s and 60s, we created such a good society, changed from 30 to 60, that life was so much easier. Yeah. So now people started focusing not on the job and bringing home the money in the bottom of the Maslow hierarchy, but they were higher up. So they had more time. And that started to create other opportunities. Things got too easy. We got moving in the wrong direction. And then all of a sudden our economy took a dip, right? So I think I kind of like that. It made a lot of sense to me, and I'm still thinking into it. But it's an interesting circle to think about.
Okay, let's talk about another challenge, a little thing called COVID. How do you think COVID and social distancing changed people's thinking about a dream job?
I don't know if it was about the dream job or the conditions around the dream job. I think they're still trying to figure this all out, right? I think back to myself when I started with Booz Allen Hamilton coming out of the military. It was 2009. And my boss said, I don't care if you work in the office, you work at home, you're traveling. I just expect you to get the job done. So I'm the type of person that needs that interaction with people. I wanted to be around my boss. I want to learn. I wanted to be around my peers. I wanted to be around my team. I needed that interaction. So I spent as much time as I could in the office. But when the principals were gone, my peers were going to be traveling out to their job sites, and I was going to spend the entire day sitting in the office on the phone with the door closed. I said, why am I driving downtown?
Uh-huh.
Why am I doing that? If it was 30 minutes down at 5 a.m. and it was an hour plus coming home at 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Why would I do that? And I think that's what people saw in COVID. They started to realize I'm spending so much time on the road to get down to an office where I sit by myself most of the time. Why am I doing this? It makes no sense. So I think a lot of people really started thinking about the quality of life. Why am I spending an hour and a half traveling when I could be spending it with the kids, right? Picking them up at school.
That time commuting doesn't benefit you or your employer. And that's why I wanted to get into the next question. I think so many people fell in love with working remotely and having more control over their schedule. Mm-hmm. What's your advice to people in our learning community, how they can convince their supervisors and their employers to let them work from home and make it a win-win?
I think it's not so much just about convincing them to work at home, but having the conversation of where does my job need to be done?
Yeah.
If you're an auto mechanic, you got to be in the shop, right?
Yeah.
If you're a financial guy who's just doing spreadsheets all day and you really don't interact with people, you can certainly be at home. And then there's a whole bunch in the middle. And I think you have to look really at the job, the situation, and say, and the people. I'll come back to that one. But if you think about the job, how much of the job requires interaction with other people, with other team members, where you have to build relationships, you have to build trust. And once you build that, your team is stronger and you produce better. And you don't get that at home. It doesn't matter how many Zoom calls you have. Now, when we first met and COVID started, I was still the board chair for the Red Cross. And what I loved is in Austin, they created a virtual coffee break at 9 o'clock and at 2 o'clock. And you just join for 15 minutes, grab a drink, grab a cup of coffee, whatever, not an alcoholic drink, but you had something, and it was just 15 minutes of interaction, like you went down to the coffee bar where you worked and you interacted with people. And I thought that was dynamite, because you're focusing in on that interaction and team building.
And I bet that time was not to talk about work, but to talk about your lives outside of work.
That's right.
The old water cooler conversation.
Yeah. And what helps a leader more than knowing your people? And I think that's a big piece that we miss in today's environment. There's so many people who are pushing back on letting their bosses know anything about them, that the boss doesn't know what your challenges are. I mean, we need to know when you have a parent who's struggling and you need to spend more time with them and you need to do some travel to be there. You need to know when you have a child that needs some high attention, right? They're going through some medical situations, whatever. There's a huge population of that, unfortunately. So how do we do it? Maybe some people are just struggling with the job. And if we don't get that feedback, we can't help them. One of the Dave Ramsey personalities, Chris Hogan, he talks a story of, he walked in the office one day and he walked down to the coffee bar I was talking about, and people were kind of talking and they were around somebody. And as soon as he walked in, because he was the boss, everybody broke up. He was like, what's going on? And he could have just walked back to his office and forgot about it. But he went down to this person's office and said, I'll use the name Betty. Betty, is everything going okay? Looks like you guys were having quite the conversation. She says, yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. He says, no, something was going on. I'm just curious. Are you okay? And finally she broke down and she said, my mom has been sick for 6 months and they just diagnosed she's got like 2 or 3 weeks to live. And I have used all my leave. I cannot be there for her. And I need to be there. I'm sorry, I'm crying. I want to be there for my mother, but I can't. And Chris Hogan looked at her and said, pack up your computer. Just leave it here. Go home, get tickets, go spend it with your mother. We'll figure it out. And she's like, no, I don't have any leave. He says, you're not listening to me. I'm going to go talk to the president and we're going to figure this out. There's no reason that you should be here. You should be with your parents, with your mom. And he couldn't be the great leader he wanted to be if he didn't know what her challenge was. And unfortunately, I think COVID and pandemic and operating remotely, it blocks that connection. Go ahead.
Well, what's it take for a leader? I mean, to me, that's an inspiring leader. But what's it take to get to that level of leadership? You're not worrying about your own success and happiness. You're worrying about the success and happiness of the people who report to you. What's it take to get to that level of leadership?
It takes an organization that creates a culture where that is okay, where we're more about the people than we are about the money, right? The leader
but you
has
got to
set
make a
that
profit.
culture.
They're
Sure.
going to say, if you don't make a profit, I'm not going to be able to pay Don.
Sure, you can't have everybody gone, right? But if you can create a culture where, because I'm sure in that office, Chris Hogan pulled the other people together and said, I just told so-and-so to go home. You guys heard it this morning. Her mom's dying. Can you guys all help me pick up the slack? We're going to do this as a team, and we're going to get through this together. Because at someday, one of the rest of you are going to have that problem, and we're going to tell you to go home, and the rest of us are going to pick it up, right? So this is all about us working together as a team. Think about COVID. Remember the very beginning. The quick, easy answer for most CEOs was, I'm going to lay off 10%, 20%, 30% of my staff, right? And I remember one story where he went down and he started talking to the group, and they said, this is what I think I have to do. And somebody raised their hand and said, what if we all took a 15% pay cut? Would that meet your financial needs? And the CEO said, well, I think it would. Are you guys willing to do that? And they looked around the room, and everybody said, instead of 20% of the people having no job, we'll all take less money and we'll all figure out how to get through it together. And then because they stayed and because they had that culture, they started working together to figure out other ways to make more money. Think about, was it Gloria's right down by the Pearl? They couldn't operate as a restaurant. They became a grocery store. They started going to Cisco up in New Braunfels, who had no place to send their food, and said, you start sending it here. People in the Pearl started coming in with their own egg cartons, crates, and egg cartons, 18, 24, and they'd fill them up and sell them eggs, right? And they figured out ways to make money and compensate for that loss of income. Because I think if you just take 20% off the top of people are going to start not trusting leadership. And they're going to start looking for that other job because they no longer trust who they're working with. And it starts to become a downward spiral instead of an upward spiral.
Yeah.
So it's culture. It's the right values. That leader has to have seen it modeled somewhere else. We don't just come up with this naturally. We see it through other people. We get inspired. So, John Maxwell team.
It seems to me a leader has to have encountered some pain in their own life.
Yeah.
To empathize with those experiencing me. It could be losing a loved one. It could be, losing a job and facing financial stress, et cetera, et cetera. But can a leader really connect with his organization if he's never really endured any type of problem or challenge?
We only get it through two ways. One, we get it through our own experience, and two, we get it through empathy from others. And if it impacts us enough through others, then I think we can still use that experience. I can use the Chris Hogan story. Yeah. It never happened to me, but I can use that story of what I'm trying to model and how I'm trying to act to build a better organization. So I would say those two things. Yeah.
Don, we hear a lot about mentors. And my thought is we all want mentors, right? And we all want these very successful, powerful, high-ranking mentors. But how is it possible to recruit a mentor? I see why. I can see what the mentee wants, but what's in it for the mentor? And how do you go about getting a mentor who leads a very, very busy life?
It almost goes back to what you said about the donor. The donor gets the most satisfaction out of the transaction by giving their money. I think a mentor can get a lot of satisfaction, if not the most, by helping others come behind them and exceed, succeed, and exceed them in their performance. It's nothing happier for me was when I saw other people around me that used to work for me, all of a sudden now get promoted to the same great I was in the military and then actually get promoted early and to see them exceed me and keep going forward. And I used to joke around and say, someday I want to work for you. And people like, it's never going to happen. Well, it did happen. Yeah. I started working for some people that there was a captain. We were down at Brooks back in the day, 93. I was getting ready for major. He was just pitting on captain. When I retired, he was a 2-star general and I was a colonel. Mm-hmm. So it was neat to see how he exceeded. Mentor is so important because I upset people when I say this, and I kind of say it tongue in cheek, but God made a mistake. Right. And that is that every one of us who is born, we have zero knowledge. And the only way we get that knowledge is we have to experience it or we have to get it from others. Right? And the mentor is that way we get it from others. Just like what with the previous question. So if we can talk to other people about how they struggled through things, maybe weight loss or relationship issues or dealing with a bad boss or working on a project, if we can talk to people about that, we will gain their knowledge and we can move forward faster. So the way you get to them is you find people who are going through that and you walk down and have a conversation with them. Say, hey, would you be willing to mentor me? Maybe it's a one-time conversation. Maybe it's a long-term relationship, depending what time they have.
And mentors can come from a lot of places, not necessarily the workplace. They could be in your place of worship. They can be in your neighborhood. They can be in your bowling league. I mean, they're all around us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the only way you'll know is if you have a conversation with them.
And probably it's pretty flattering. I mean, people love to give advice, okay? They're always giving me advice. And, but it's really I think it's flattering to be asked for your advice. Don, what do you think I should do about X, Y, and Z? Mm-hmm. I trust you. Mm-hmm. I believe in you. Mm-hmm. Can we talk? Okay.
I think a lot of that comes from A, the relationship, and B, that trust, right? Yeah. You've modeled it. You've displayed characteristics that I respect and I trust you. Now I'm willing to open up and talk my challenge so that you can help me.
Let's go back to the pursuit of the dream job, which you're telling me is attainable. That's the good news. Mm-hmm. Who do you suggest? Who should we talk to in this journey to identify what we really want to do with the time of life, the time of our 93,000 hours spent at work? Who are good people to talk to?
That's always a good one. Mentors was a real good one. The problem with a mentor, what's great about a mentor is they give you the knowledge and experience they've experienced, and you get to use that or reject it, right? A coach lets you, they ask questions of you and they make you think inside. That's why I love being a coach. What I love is when I ask a question and there's this long pause and they stop and they're like, I don't know. Let me think about that. And you can see the wheels in their brain churning. Mm-hmm. And they start to think about, what is it? What job do I like? What was that exciting experience in my career? What was not an exciting experience? I don't ever want to live that again. So I think you need a mentor, you need a coach. Sometimes you need that inner circle of people around you. Now, again, there's a challenge there. Just like ourselves, our human brain is made to protect us. So it'll try to slow us down from taking risk. But I think at the same time, sometimes our friends are trying to protect us so we don't suffer pain. They're not always out there going, yeah, jump off that cliff, Don, do it, man. Yeah, you're going to hit the rocks, but you're going to survive. They're not going to do that. And
sometimes, wouldn't you say, they project themselves? Yes. Particularly when you're willing to take a risk in your personal life, your business life, your community life. Friends sometimes project their own fears, on yourself. That's something to be cognizant of.
Yeah, that's a perfect point. You need to know what they went through and why they went through it before you accept that advice or that push back on your dream. They say very, very careful about sharing your dream with people around you, because other people aren't going to share in that dream, and they're going to, those questions. Who do you think you are?
Right.
What experience do you think you have to do that? Right.
Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurs get that a lot. You've never had an entrepreneur. There's nobody in your family who's been an entrepreneur. How do you think you know how to do that?
You know how I define an entrepreneur? Mm-hmm. They see something the rest of us can't.
Yeah.
And it's risk reward, but they're willing to take that risk. By the way, let's get back. Mm-hmm. How can you tell if your current employment is not a dream job?
I think it goes back to that first piece we were talking. It's that energy. When everything you do or everything people say around you starts to just annoy the heck out of you.
Yeah. How about you dread to look at the incoming email?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. When I was I was with Booz Allen, and I was on a job up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and a couple things happened. I was working with a vice president of a prime contractor, and he would say things and have me do a bunch of work, and then he would never read it. He would never let me present it like he asked me to do. It was always like a lot of work, but I never got to work the thing that I was trying to do. We were trying to do cost efficiencies. So he said he was behind it, but his actions said no. So at some point I lost trust. I would go back out of his office thinking, should I put work into this? Because it's going to be the same thing over and again. I'm going to spend hours doing this, and he's not going to let me have any time. So I started to doubt people. I started to lack trust in the people around me. The things that people would say, it started to really irritate me. One night, somebody said something to me, and I just about blew up, and I got quiet, and I walked up to my office, and somebody came up and was like, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I'm not okay." I said, "This is getting crazy. They're protecting their job. They're not doing what we need them to do. And it goes against what we're here to do. And this is crazy." So when I started to get that stuff eating inside me, I knew my time on that job was coming to an end. Yeah. And I just started looking for another opportunity. So I think if you start paying attention to the emotions inside of you, just like when you're excited and you love it and you don't ever want to leave, if the majority of the time you're not having that satisfaction, then there's something wrong. You got to change it. Now, I would tell you that you should have a conversation somehow with your boss. Hey, boss, I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah. What might that conversation sound like? How do you approach that conversation?
And again, it's going to be the trust you have in your boss and that relationship you have, right? That's why a relationship is so important. But if you can walk in and say, "Hey, can I close the door and talk to you a little bit? I'm just letting you know that I'm really feeling frustrated." Like that situation I was just at. If I went to my boss and said, "I'm really struggling with this relationship. I'm being asked to do all these different things, but I never get the opportunity to take it to the next level." He asked me to talk a half hour at our offsite, and the only 2 minutes I got were after we already summarized and people were packing up. That's when I got to talk. I said, "There's a total lack of respect. How can I'm not finding satisfaction in this. I'm not feeling like I'm making a difference. Either can you help me figure out how to approach this, or is there another place that I can work? Because I don't want to leave the company. I like the company, but I'm not enjoying this position."
That picks up on our next question. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to stay with the same organization for an extended period of time and kind of smartly navigate your way to the dream job?
If the company has a culture of letting you do that, I would say yes. So, and Booz Allen was one of those. So it was a great job. I stayed there for 9 years, way above the average for military, coming out of the service, which is most military leave their first post-military job at a rate of 45% within the first 12 months. So 1 out of every 2 leave their first job in the first year. And I stayed for 9 years. So I found something that made a difference for me. If the culture of the organization allows you to work on this, and then to move and work on this and grow yourself, and you're moving forward, right? Continuing to progress, then I think it's great. It works. Now, at the same point, I had clients, government clients, who I had a superstar on their supporting their team. contractor supporting the government team. And it was time for that contractor to move to a new position from leading a small team to leading multiple teams. And I went and sat down with a client and I said, here's what the situation is. Here's what I want to do. Here's the person that I want to bring in. Here's their resume. I think there's going to be a good fit. And I would get this kickback of, you don't like me anymore. You're trying to destroy my organization. They had total fear that everything was going to fail. But I asked them a question. I said, so if your people are ready to progress, do you hold them back? And they're like, well, no, I never do that. Not for my own people. I said, well, why would you do that for my people? My people need to progress. So if I could create that relationship and understanding, they then said, yeah, you're right. I do need to help you guys progress forward because they're going to help us at a higher level when you win that contract. So it's all about the conversation.
We talked about entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. How can you assess if you have what it takes to be in business for yourself?
Oh, Michael E. Gerber does a great book called E-Myth Revisited. And he talks about the technician, the entrepreneur, and the manager. Yeah. And it's all about understanding yourself and your personality and the way you behave. Some people are entrepreneurs and they're just big picture thinkers, visionaries, and they hate the down, hands-on, detail work. This is out another book, and I can't think of the name of that one. Traction. Is it Traction? Yes.
But I'm going to interrupt you for a second because a lot of us who are basically by ourselves, I mean, we get to do some stuff we love, but, we don't assign people to copy this or to type this or take this to the post office or pick up a ream of paper. You got to do that all yourself. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs got to be willing. Now, it's nice to be an entrepreneur and have, 25 Don Gleasons and Jim Eskins working for you. But how about when it's just Don Gleason by himself or Jim Eskin by himself? That's a really rigorous challenge for an entrepreneur.
Yep. You have to have that persistence, that attitude that I want to do whatever it takes to make this work. And you have to back it up with action. I've been around people who've said, oh yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. And the first time you ask them for something, well, I don't do that. I don't do that. It's like, well, then you're not helping me, right? Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to do those three tasks I mentioned: entrepreneur, manager, and the technician. But you better be able to perform the task, the technician, to be able to bring in the money. And then there's got to be somebody who manages it. And if you're not able to do that, then all you're ever going to do, I've been in a shop where the paperwork was an absolute mess. You went to try to pay the bill for great work that they did, and they were like this huge pile of paper. Well, it's in here somewhere. Yeah, I don't know where it is. You might have to come back. I don't.
Hey, I got to tell you,
they're going to fail the business.
That's what scares me most. If someone doesn't bill me quickly, I'm thinking this person, that business is really not thinking clearly. That's right. People who do bill me quickly, they scare me.
They do scare you?
Yeah, because if they don't even want to bill, and how are they going to work for me if they don't want to benefit themselves?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if they can't bill and earn money, they're not going to survive. Yeah. So I think you really got to do the assessment of yourself of what is my personality, not just like a DISC personality, which I'm a consultant in, but also like the book Traction. Am I an entrepreneur or I'm an executor? Where do I fit? How do I like doing those different pieces? Because we got to market ourselves. We got to do sales. We got to have a sales conversation. You got to be able to do all those. As I talk to military folks, they're like, I don't want to be a salesman. I don't want to do business development. I think that's slimy. Then you better not be an entrepreneur because you're doing sales all the time. Yeah. So again, probably goes back to mentor. You got to find somebody who's been there, done it, and can talk you through it.
Yeah. Hey, this has been a wonderfully enriching conversation. John Largent, do we have, we haven't got our audience yet. I think there was someone asking, I forget what his name was. He wanted to come on the screen and ask a question. Is there anybody who'd like to come on the screen and ask us a question? And Don and I have a deal. If it's an easy question, I'll take it. If it's a challenging question, he'll take it. Anybody either want to come on the screen, you raise your hand, and John will give you video and audio privileges, or you can type it into the Q&A space. We are doing great on time, Don.
I typed in the very beginning. What I wanted to hear from the audience is what they thought about some of what we're talking about. So it'd be great to hear that. Go ahead, John.
Come on.
Nobody's stepping up right now.
Come on, guys.
Be like an entrepreneur. Take some risk.
No questions out of bounds.
I'm going to randomly pick Craig. He came on early, and so I'm going to just promote him to
Come on, Craig.
panelists to have a conversation.
Was Craig from Georgia? Where was Craig from?
Yes.
Craig
was from Georgia.
We need a day's not complete without meeting a Georgian. So come on screen and ask us anything you want about attaining your dream job.
A sharp looking beard.
There he is.
Hey, Craig. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
What do you want to know? Are you at your dream job? Do you know what the dream job is? And what help do you need from the expert to get to your dream job?
It's a great question. And I probably hopped on just trying to get a perspective on a few things. I will certainly admit I'm not currently sitting in my dream job. Not that there were bad things about it, but I think, and maybe it's an ideal all of us have to look out for that one place that might exist where we get an opportunity to feel fulfilled in what we're doing. And I've had a conversation with my wife about there are things that all of us can do well, but the things that we do well, do they bring you fulfillment? Because I think that is the dream.
Well put.
To be in that place where you have an opportunity to contribute, where you feel valued for what you do, and that there's an opportunity for growth. So I always appreciate new perspectives, and that's kind of what I came on, was just to hear some fresh perspectives on even trying to identify what that looks like.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want, but I am putting you on the spot. Can I ask you what you're doing right now?
I'm the Associate Vice President for Alumni and Main Campus Operations at a 2-year institution here in the middle of Georgia. Frontline fundraiser, CFRE, have had a varied career doing a number of things, but that's what I'm doing currently.
By the way, my last 10 years were spent fundraising for 2-year institutions. So give me an elbow. We're in this together.
Yeah.
And I thought I saw another question on the screen that had something to do with the relationship between personality and dream jobs. Did you see that, Don?
I did not.
Yes. The question is dream job related to personality? Should we look for jobs that are comfortable to us?
I think the answer is yes, but not only personality. There's a great model the Japanese developed called Ikigai.
What?
Ikigai.
Ikigai. Okay.
And what it is, it's 4 circles. And you look at the intersections, and it's, what do I do well? What do I enjoy doing? What does the world need? And what will they pay me for? And the intersection in the middle of that is like your dream job, right? You love it. You're good at it. People need it. You pay for it. But you're not always going to be in that middle. So there's going to be trade-offs like you talked earlier about, which am I going to fit? But I think there's your personality plays into what job you really like. The experience, the culture of the organization. You could have the best role, really lights you up, energizes you, but the leadership just sucks the life out of you. Been there. I was a squadron commander one time, and I couldn't do anything, not even pave a sidewalk without the boss's approval.
Is that where your hair went? Is that where your hair went?
About the time it left.
Yeah.
So there was no trust there. There was no relationship. So there's so many things that factor into it, but I think Jonathan, it starts with what is your personality, right? Because if you're a disc, a C, where you're very detail oriented and compliance oriented, you need a job that fits that type of personality. If you're going to be in a place where it's all about relationships and sales and flying off the seat of your pants, it's going to feel very uncomfortable because you're going to want to have that detail and do the analysis, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
If you're that I personality, you don't want all that incredible finance, compliance, analytics, detail. It'll drive you crazy. So I think you have to pay attention to it. But again, it's not the only thing. There's that there's the piece of what do you really like. Just because I give you a list of jobs for your personality doesn't mean that you can't find something in another list for a different personality that I can do with this personality, right? If I can use my S, but I'm a C. So there's going to be passion and interests that can lie outside your personality. It's just how you blend those. And that's where I think what Jim said, the question, can you get your foot in the door and work yourself through to find the dream job? Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Right. Hey, listen, John, can you put Don's contact information on the screen? Don, we've had a great 5 years, and guess what? I'm even more excited about our collaboration and our partnerships as we move forward. As I said, this is the last traditional webinar. When you see us again on Zoom, we're going hybrid and we'll be within a live TV audience. But I want to thank Don Gleason. For as long as I've known him in different roles, he has always been focused, he's been insightful, and he's been willing to help the other person. Don, thank you for being such a rich resource, whatever your role is. So he doesn't hide. Let me tell you, they can email you, they can call you on your cell, they can go to your websites. And can I say that you're willing to talk to anybody who would like to learn more about Achieve New Heights? Is that a safe statement?
That's 100% accurate. I would love to have a 30-minute conversation that's complimentary and see if I can give you some insight and some help. And if we can go forward from there, then we'll have a conversation. But at least I give you something to help you.
You can't beat that, folks. Yeah. Don, it's been a pleasure to begin this journey. You are the last traditional webinar guest. I can't wait to get you in the TV studio. That'll be this fall.
That'll be fun.
Again, I really appreciate all you contribute in so many different ways. And it comes down to this. You're just a darn good person. So thank you for being a darn good person and always willing to help others. Thank you, Don.
But you're welcome. My mom and dad would be so proud from what you just said. So you're very welcome, and I appreciate the opportunity.
And we'll be talking soon. And folks, I'll have makeup. No, I don't think I'll have makeup. You'll see me in a TV studio the next time we get together. Tracy, good to thank you for joining us. And we'll be back hybrid on Wednesday, July 19th from 4 to 5 p.m. Thank you, Richard. And Don, to you and your family, be well.